Hello and welcome to the show. I am here at the top of Mount Chiliad for some more downhill chaos. Now, I may have slightly forgotten about the other three new lowriders, so I drove some mod vehicles. I'll do them next week, my bad. On that front, the first vehicle today is the Ariel Atom. Now this, I love the Ariel Atom. Crazy, crazy car. Not exactly designed for off-roading, but yeah, kind of curious to see how it would go. Now, I couldn't quite get the mod to work properly with the add-on method. I don't know, it just didn't want to play nicely. So I did have to do the replacement thing, and because that didn't up the power, I had to go and yeah, give it quite a significant performance boost with the engine power multiplier. As to a level where what will be accurate for for an Atom. So yeah, I had a little bit of a workaround. There we go. First attempt, things didn't go particularly well when I stuck a wheel over the edge. Now the car, quite a high grip vehicle, tendency to roll over a little bit. We've seen this quite a few times with cars, especially vehicles that are this fast, and the Atom was incredibly fast. Let's face it, these are some of the fastest accelerating cars in the world, and yeah, it was certainly going very, very quick, and it was easy to slightly miss your braking point when you have this sort of ludicrous amount of acceleration, or in that case there, as I tried to get on the power a little too soon, you run a bit wide, clip a rock and go for a rollover. Again, a huge speed down there, and I'm pushing my luck slightly too much. The wheels had a slightly odd collision as well. They were sort of fine for most of the time, but once it actually starts rolling over, then it gets unhappy. Don't quite know what that was about, but there we go. Either way, I don't think it actually affected the driving. It was only once it started crashing, it kind of made it roll even more, which was quite amusing. Hey, anything that makes cars roll even more, I'm okay with. As I was sort of getting the hang of a car a little bit more, trying to come down towards the end of the run, very commonplace to have mistakes down there, especially, again, with a car that is this fast. It's very easy to overcook it, and yeah, just taking that little too much speed is very, very easy. That's one of the real challenges with this course. The faster the car gets, the easier it is to make a litlittle tiny mistake, and one mistake is going to throw you off the course. So it took a little while to get the hang of the Atom. I don't think it's quite got the record for sort of straight line speed on here. I think that's still held by the Formula 1 cars, but this is certainly not far off. This is not far off with the accelerating around here. I don't think anything's gone. I think Formula 1 cars about 91-ish miles an hour. Nothing's got up past 100 miles an hour around this course. That is the demands of this circuit, and it's not helped. The few bits where you can put power down is very, very bumpy. So the car spends half its time in the air, so it can't actually put power down on the road. And this thing did get bounced around a fair bit. Now, we didn't have any of kind of the bouncing and oversteering moments that we have seen from some vehicles, but it just got launched up in the air because you were going so quickly with the vehicle. It wasn't sort of bouncing it and spinning it around, but yeah, getting some serious airtime with this car was relatively possible. This run out, get it slowed down, get it down this side. The bushes weren't too bad for this vehicle either, which I was quite surprised at. This kind of car, very lightweight vehicles, tend to have problems with the bushes. That was not the case. A little bit on two wheels, almost 90 miles an hour across the line is some serious speed from the Atom, and probably scare the crap out of a mountain biker as we cross the line and launch the vehicle in towards the scenery. It's a bloody fast car, this one. It really was. Just, yeah, do a little bit of getting used to. The last few vehicles I've driven down, nothing's quite been as quick as this one, so it took a little bit of getting used to just having that acceleration, having that speed going down Chiliad. I do quite like it, though. Can't really go wrong with an Ariel Atom. Up next, well, it's not an official lowrider, but this is the Roosevelt Revolver. I think it's a really, really cool mod, this one. Kind of makes a chopped Roosevelt. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. Of course, there is a downside to that. The car has got practically zero ground clearance, and we're going to take it down a very, very bumpy, challenging mountain road. I was expecting some problems with this car, but the lowriders have got very, very little in the way of ground clearance. And they have got down here without too much problems. The Sabre Turbo, for example, last time out was very, very quick down here, despite the fact that it had very little in the way of ground clearance. So I was hoping that this vehicle would hold its own. The immediate thing that I noticed with this car, it was possibly one of the most oversteery vehicles I've ever driven down here, and it wasn't nice controlled oversteer. No, it was sort of 1 minute you're going along fine, and then all of a sudden you get a massive snap of oversteer, and then you're off the course. I think of all of the cars I've ever driven down here, the Ferrari 458 that I did a very long time ago was quite an oversteery, quite an awkward car in that respect, but even that has got nothing on this vehicle. Now, I am not sure if the low kind of ground clearance was causing some issues somewhere that I wasn't quite seeing, because, yeah, this thing, just as soon as you try to get the power down with it, the back end wanted to come around, and I think almost every single corner on this track I spun at one point. Because you're just not used to having GTA 5 cars that have this snappy oversteer. It's not normally a thing that happens. In general, GTA 5 cars are very grippy, relatively arcadey cars. You know, they're good fun things to drive because you can chuck them around a course and they're fine with it. Yeah, this car was not at all, absolutely not at all. Coming out of the hairpin there, I was trying to sort of boot it, get the power down quickly out of that corner. Admittedly, I was a little bit too far over, stuck a wheel over the edge, and then you've had it. It's just going to spin around. I was trying to get it frantically under control down here, and it didn't really work. I did so many rotations trying to stop the car. Actually, quite difficult to stop the vehicles because, of course, once it starts going, if the car's going backwards down the mountain, if you hold the brake, it thinks you want reverse, so you just go faster. So you've got to sort of balance braking and accelerating when it's spinning around wildly like that. Again, another very, very simple spin out of after the little downhill jump. I mean, this has probably got to be the least spectacular car with probably the most fails I've done. It's just it's not spectacular crashes, it's just irritating crashes with this car. And I wonder if it is perhaps the bodywork, that the chassis being so low is just catching a little bit on the floor, and that's what's making the oversteer even worse. Possibly. That's probably the best explanation I have for this vehicle, why it does what it does, because yeah, I mean, it's not the most powerful, it's not the quickest car, certainly, that we've had down here, but once it starts going. Admittedly, this one here was nothing to do with the oversteer. That was the hiker may have got in the way of me landing slightly, and then that lifted the car up onto sort of two wheels, and an already oversteery car does not need to be on two wheels coming into one of the tougher corners on the circuit. So yeah, it took a while to get the hang of this vehicle, and I am pretty sure I spun it at just about every single corner on the track. Didn't have any problems with the brakes though down towards turn 1, which is always nice. It was just problems absolutely everywhere else. Once you could get the power down, you know, I say it's not the fastest vehicle, certainly, but it was, you know, some decent performance in this one. I was about 75 miles an hour, which is not bad going, really. Down there, you just had to be really very, very careful through these corners. Really got to make sure you don't jump on the power in the same way that you would with just about every single other vehicle. Again, on this run, I had a wheel dangling over the edge. Got away with it, though. I wasn't quite as brutal on the acceleration that time out there, so got away without going for a big spin. Really wary of the bumps. The bumps there caused many a rear-wheel drive car problems. We've seen many vehicles spin on that part, and this vehicle had been spinning all day. You have to be very careful over them. And again, down here, bumps could get cars into little bits of trouble. It wasn't too bad, though. On this run up towards the high-speed jump, landings were pretty good. Again, all other problems kind of paled into insignificance with the amount of sort of snappy oversteer. I did actually sort of fire the car a little bit wrong down this side road. Somehow got away with it. Normally, if you run the banking like that, you have well and truly had it. That fortunately wasn't the case on this one. Around the final corner with a little bit of a slide, not a massively snappy oversteer moment though, and we saw across a front of another one of the mountain bikers. Did get it stopped though. They are not having a particularly good day. Amazingly, I haven't hit one of them yet when they come down there, I don't think. But yeah, that fired it into the scenery. And finally, we have got the Hummer H6, a six-wheeled Hummer. I think it is six-wheel drive as well. Not 100% sure on that, but yeah, rather large vehicle. I was kind of curious to see how this would fare down this course. Of course, of all of the vehicles that have gone today, this one is by far the most suited to this sort of a road, and it was terrible. And it was all to do with the brakes on this one. All to do with the brakes. The Atom was scarily fast. The Revolver spun a lot. And this thing does not get stopped at all. It really really struggled slowing the Hummer down as we go soaring off into the scenery. That is carrying so much speed down that part of the course. You don't normally have this bigger an accident at that part of the course. It's, you know, you sometimes do go tumbling down here. You don't normally carry 80, 90 miles an hour. You're up to 104 miles an hour, plummeting down the side. I think it was 115 before it hit the hill there. It carries huge speed, and nothing that I can do can stop the car. Often I use it as a little bit of a test when the car's, once you've gone off the edge, see if I can actually get the car back under control. You've not got a hope in hell of stopping this thing. Until it hits a tree or a rock, you're not stopping it because the brakes are pathetic. The brakes are absolutely useless at trying to get this thing slowed down. Because there's so much weight behind it, it just keeps on tumbling. It keeps on rolling. So after two cars that had relatively unspectacular crashes, I think it was down to the Hummer, really, to bring up the spectacle as pretty much every single body panel fell off in that roll. Once you did get the hang of the cars slowing down around there were still plenty of places that you could have issues with. Relatively early on the brakes coming down here, not a chance. Are we going to get that one stopped? I was trying to be relatively cautious here, but it's so difficult when this car is so much worse on the brakes than just about everything else that I have driven. And then we go for a little bit of an exploder. I'm actually quite surprised to see the car explode in that manner. Normally it's when you hit the back of the car on the ground that you get the big explosions. That one, it was just, there's just so much speed, so much momentum carried when things go wrong with this. And again, fraction too wide, you just can't stop it. I'm solidly on the brakes there, trying to get it under control. Now got to switch to be on the accelerator because we're now going backwards down chiliad. Never a good thing, finding you're going backwards down chiliad. Eventually, some trees managed to catch us. That is definitely the safest way of slowing it down up towards the hairpin. I was a little bit concerned about this vehicle being too long, and I completely and utterly fluffed it up on this run. We got one wheel hanging over the edge. I wondered if I could just about... Nope, couldn't get away with it. If I'd been sensible, I would have gone for a back it up and carried on, but I was curious to see whether it could make the turn. Almost. Sort of, we were just a few centimetres out, and now we're starting going down the hill. And this really emphasises just how bad the brakes are. I am fully on the brakes at this point. Fully on the brakes, and it's not stopping. This is not the steepest part of the mountain. It's relatively steep, sure, but this is not the steepest part of the mountain, and I cannot stop the Hummer from going downhill. It's 30 miles an hour as we crest that hill. I'm trying to wiggle the wheels. I don't really want to put the vehicle sideways because it'd be quite easy to end up having it go backwards again, and you've seen how difficult that is to control. So I'm trying to kind of get the thing to go diagonally, trying to use any tactics I can to slow it down, and it just doesn't work. It has absolutely no interest whatsoever in slowing down. Eventually, but just before we go ploughing into the lumber mill, the terrain does flatten out and I can wiggle it to a standstill. That is how awful the brakes are on this vehicle, and it's got relatively decent acceleration. It's certainly not the slowest accelerating thing that we have had down here. So yeah, it's kind of a scary prospect. As soon as I turned down here, I realised I was going far too fast. Normally, sort of 40-odd miles an hour down there wouldn't be a problem, but again, you're not going to stop the car, especially not when it's starting going downhill like this. It was a really tough vehicle to drive down here, and even while I was trying to get the hang of it, still could mess up early on. This one, I actually got it stopped before it went flying off the hillside this time, using a fence to kind of balance it on top of a rock. I guess it worked at the end of the day. It took a while. Much like with the Revolver, it took a while to get the hang of this car, just to be able to drive it down here. For this one, it was all about having to brake so early. And the finished run looks very unspectacular from this, because you just can't get up to speed, while the actual vehicle itself has got some decent, some decent acceleration about it. We're up to kind of 60-ish miles an hour. It'd probably go faster, but I have to get on the brakes so early down here. You've got to be so careful, and you've got to use the handbrake as well to get it around these turns. It's not the largest vehicle ever that I've driven down here, but it is a relatively large vehicle. And this hairpin up here is a nasty bugger of a corner. I actually got a lot sideways coming down there, but it made the turn and it kind of got stopped, so I wasn't going to complain. And around the hairpin, probably a few more centimetres long, and this car would have real problems. It can work though. Unfortunately, we have seen some cars that really don't like handbrake turning it around the hairpin. Fortunately, that wasn't the case with the Hummer. You could yank the handbrake and you would get it around the corner. The bumps weren't really a problem for the Hummer. Again, much like we saw with the Revolver. The Revolver's sole problem was the snappy oversteer, and the rest of the stuff kind of paled into insignificance. That was a very similar story with the Hummer. But if you could get the car slowed down enough for the corners, the rest of it really didn't matter, because you lost so much time in the end trying to slow the damn thing down. You just couldn't carry any momentum down here, because I knew if I carried more speed, you're just not going to make the turn. Even this time I was only just about in position, and unlike with the Revolver where I could get away with running on the hillside a little bit, if I'd done that with this, no hope. You're not going to stop it for this turn. Even this time where I was relatively early, I was relatively slow even coming down that section, it still runs wide through the second to last corner. We are flat out around the final turn, and it's sort of 60 miles an hour across the line. As I said, not bad acceleration, just the brakes are shocking. And again, we went flying past some mountain bikers. So that was the Hummer H6. I wasn't expecting that awful of brakes on this car. I thought it might actually be relatively good down here. The size might work against it. Maybe the size to an extent worked against getting it stopped, a bit more weight and so on. But yeah, was an experience. I think that's probably the best word to go with for the Hummer. Most definitely was an experience. Now on to the times, and unsurprisingly it was the Ariel Atom that went very quickly. I won 20.0. I was actually expecting perhaps a little bit faster from this car. It does put it into 11th place though, 0.7 of a second down on the Alpha 4C, a second down on the T20. I mean, this is up there with the very fastest of the kind of normal road cars, as you would expect, really, with an Atom. Yeah, I'm not quite sure where that lost its little bit of time, but quite an impressive vehicle nonetheless. The Revolver actually went relatively well. I won 29.0, same time as the Guardian, 0.1 of a second faster than the Valor version. Wasn't expecting it to be. I thought it was going to be quite a lot further down, to be honest, with the oversteer. It's a relatively respectable time. And the other car I was speaking about with oversteer, the 458, is 0.2 down on the Revolver. So it's in there very much with the road cars. It's only a little bit down on the Banshee 900R. And then finally, to finish off, the poor Hummer is well down the order. Its brakes are shocking. Basically, it just doesn't get stopped. It got beaten by the 2CV. That's how much time is lost. The 2CV had no speed at all, just none of it. And yeah, the Hummer's brakes are so awful that is why it is so far down the table. Anyway, that is it for this video, guys. As ever, I'll put all of the links to the mods that I've used in the description, so you can download them, have a go with them yourself. That's it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.